I'm Stephen Pope. Sam Hobbs.
Mackenzie Gamage. Celeste Montgomery.
We're Team 2, and we're very grateful for this opportunity we have to solve your problem. But before we get into that, we want to talk about John Wooden. John Wooden is a legendary coach, best known for his time at UCLA, where in a period of 10 years, he won 12 national championships. He won those championships not because he had the clout to get people to lower the height of the basket, or because he was able to paint the lines on the court how he wanted to paint them, but he won the national championship because he knew how to take his players that he already had and his strategies and use them to create a winning team. And I would like all of you today to keep that in mind throughout our entire recommendation. This quote, "Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." So right now, Starbucks has a dilemma. They're a company that has lofty growth goals. Over the next 5 years, they want to double their store footprint, and they also want to increase their food sales by $2 billion. That's a tough deal. And right now, they're having issues with two particular parts of their supply chain. That's the chilled, ready-to-drink and ready-to-eat product, as well as the fresh lunch menus. Now, we need to decide which part of their supply chains we should adapt so that they can meet those lofty goals. Should we focus our efforts on the fresh lunch, or should we go to the ready-to-drink and eat? Now, to decide, we wanted to look at both of them. What do they have to offer us as supply chain professionals to try to implement process improvements? So looking at the lunch, right now Starbucks wants to create new occasions for their morning customers, so the lunch gives them an opportunity to come back and spend more money at Starbucks. They want to grow their food by $2 billion, and right now their lunch is transported from their kitchens to their CDCs to their stores in totes. And the totes are great to keep the food protected, but they're not very great when it comes to utilizing the space. They're wasting 40 to 60% of the capacity in shipping, and they're also wasting a lot of fridge space, and we can't just put a new fridge in the back room of Starbucks. There's not room. Now when it comes to the chilled, ready to drink and eat, we have more SKUs to deal with, so there's more room to try to find opportunities to slim down that supply chain. It's also every ready-to-drink and eat product is processed through a CDC, which means there's wages for the drivers and the workers that we can implement change on if we can reduce the cycle times in processing those products. As well as every single store has ready-to-drink and eat products, but only 7,500 stores right now has the lunch menu at Starbucks. So we opted to optimize the fresh lunch, and when we're done, you'll actually realize that this also helps the chilled, ready-to-drink and eat too.
All right, so our first strategy at looking at the fresh lunch was to look at how to simplify operations. To do this, we looked at the quality management tool 5S. Now first, for sorting, we want to make sure that stores are removing their old bins, signs, and anything that's taking up valuable space. To set in order, we want to have a standard shelving placement. Currently, we have 4 shelves in each fridge. This only allows us to store approximately 80 gallons of milk in each fridge. We're using about 45 gallons in a store a day. So to do this, we found a store that has 5 shelves and allows them to store 100 gallons of milk, as well as have another place for other product. We also have an issue with product placement in the dry goods section. We would like to make sure that our stores are keeping their products in a standard placement and throughout each store so that we have more of a flow as the district managers go from store to store. For Shine, we want to ensure that store is flexing forward product each day. And this will help us with the sorting and removing old boxes and partially empty boxes. Standardize. We want to implement a compliance for each store. We would like each store to be checked each month by district managers to make sure that they are complying and keeping up with the 5S. Now, sustain. We also want to implement a daily task list. And to do this, we want to ensure that they'll be flexing forward product and keeping up with the 5S. Now, since we cannot change how much room we have in each store, What we can change is how we use that space. So our second strategy is space utilization. Currently, we are transferring product, the fresh lunch product, in these gray totes. The packing methods vary, and they are not very safe as we have damaged 109,000 pieces of product in the last year. They are approximately $10 per tote, and as Stephen had mentioned, the space is we're not utilizing all the space that we have in the fridges. Our recommendation to better utilize the little bit of space that we do have is to purchase these trays. Now these trays are a little bit more expensive at $17 per tray. However, they do allow us to have a more variable in our packing. We can either stack product or we can leave it unstacked. Trays are 6 inches tall and our product at most is 3 inches tall. Now last year we shipped 74 million fresh lunch products. I'll explain how we got these averages in a little bit, but we were told that 18 products fit in the tote. We found that 27 products fit unstacked in a tray and 55 products can fit in a tray when stacked. This means that last year we touched 4 million totes. Now if we were to move to these trays, this would allow us to decrease our touches to 2.7 million and even further to 1.3 million if we stack our product. Here's an explanation of how we got to the 27 and 55. So our highest mover is the protein snack bistro box. This makes up about 22% of our sales. Its dimensions are 6 by 6 by 3, I believe, or 1.5. And so putting that into the internal tray dimensions that we have available to use gives us the numbers in the length, width, and height columns. This means that we can stack 20 protein bistro boxes in a tray. And if we were to stack them on top of each other to further utilize all the space that the tray gives us, we would be able to put 40 pieces of the bistro box in a tray. So averaging this out, this gives us approximately 27 pieces for a tray unstacked and 55 if we were to stack product.
So as John Wooden received a team every year, he never really worried about building a new training facility or investing in a lot of heavy capital, like buying new refrigerators would be for Starbucks. But what he did try to do is teach all of his players the fundamental skill sets that would empower them to be better players, and he would leverage the assets that he does have. Now, that's what the 5S is doing, is teaching the players how to play, right? But when we map the process of the delivery, we can identify that within the delivery process, it takes 6.69 and 13.57 seconds to put all this stuff away. And those are the highest numbers, or the highest weighted average seconds within those processes in the whole delivery sequence. Now, when you implement the 5S, you can actually reduce those 6.69 seconds to 3.3 in terms of getting your ready-to-eat meals into the refrigerator. And you can also get the lunch trays down to 4.5 seconds, which is 66% less than what it was currently taking, is taking right now. Now, for those of you who can see, we are going to reduce on a total route, so there's 15 deliveries per route. We're going to reduce 11 minutes to 15 minutes within the entire route by just reducing those variables. And the financial impact is pretty great when it comes to replacing the totes with the trays and with improving the speed of delivery. So you can tell that the warehouse cost of the touches, so these are the numbers Kenzie was referring to, of the 4 million touches going through the warehouse is in blue, in red is the delivery, and the improvements within the 5S of our delivery process is the gray. Now as you compare those side by side, when you can stack a tray, you can reduce cost 33% than what it currently is. And when you stack the trays within the process, we can get a 65% reduction in cost. This is going to enable Starbucks to not only facilitate the volume of product that they're shipping, but it will also lower their overall operational costs.
All right, so in order to implement these 3 strategies that we've suggested, we recommend starting with a 1-year pilot program. Within that pilot program, we are going to select 1 CDC and 1 kitchen, as well as the surrounding stores to test it out in. Now the benefits of a pilot program is it's going to allow us to start any unforeseen issues that have arose that we didn't predict, and then also we're going to gain buy-in and feedback from our employees, from our partners. That way we can continue to improve the program, and also we can leverage that buy-in when we go to roll it out company-wide. Another benefit is we can see how well it's going to improve our costs, and then we can slowly roll it out to all the stores instead of 7,500 at once. So if we wanted to, we could take the 10% loss of totes that we're doing every year and just replace that 10% over time and roll it out slowly over 3 or 4 years, or we can implement it all at once. This is a sample timeline that we came up with. So obviously we would need to select a test location and select a supplier. We'd have to do some training. Once we receive the trays, we would have to do a whole process of switching them out. And we would begin to use new trays and then measure the viability of the program. Now we do know that what gets measured gets done. So we've also come up with some performance measurements that are going to help you with some of the issues that they've had. So Kenzie touched on the monthly compliance checks, and in order to make sure that the stores are complying and following the program so that it's successful, we recommend including that as part of the store manager's bonus, and that will be a percentage. In addition, to help with the loss of totes each year because of employees stealing them or loss or using them as storage within the stores, we recommend issuing a charge every time that they are shipped out to the stores, and when they are received back, then we can issue a credit. So it should come up with a wash, and as long as they're following the program and the process. We feel that through these strategies and these performance measures, we will be able to see, the partners will be able to see the benefits from improved efficiency, improved inventory levels, and we will gain the commitment we need to stick with the 5S program as well as the trace. Now, we know that Starbucks has finite space. And just like Coach Wooden, we're not going to let what we can't do, which is change the size of the store or the footprint or the size of the back room, interfere with what we can do. So we're going to maximize our space, improve our inventory levels, and adjust our supply chain so that we can obtain the success through the growth that we were looking for. We'd like to thank you for the opportunity and open it up to elaborate on anything we presented or clarify any questions you might have.
Sam, when you talked about reducing the time, I may have missed something. How did you go to cut the time almost in half?
Yeah.
So how did you time that with these new crates?
So one of the issues that we had given to us is the stores are never prepared. Well, they're rarely prepared for delivery, which means when the driver gets there, they have to reorganize the fridge. They've got to go around things in the back room. They've got to look for things. And there's a lot of time wasted in that. And the purpose of the 5S system isn't necessarily meant for the partners at the store that are working out of the store. It's meant to facilitate and speed up the process for the drivers. So when they fulfill the 5S process, at the end of day, then drivers, when it's a nighttime delivery, they don't have to worry about, do I have to rearrange the fridge? Do I have to look for my trays? So it's kind of forcing the stores to be prepared for those deliveries that they're already receiving every day.
And I was just going to say, in the typical delivery, the delivery man has to pull everything off the bottom, and this ends up being gallons of milk, blender bottles, ready-to-eat products, and rearrange the entire fridge just to put the tote in. And in the observation that we had, it actually took 45 seconds for him to move everything around before he could put everything in. And so almost an entire minute was spent to fixing the arrangement of the fridge. So that's how, like what Stephen explained, it reduces the time.
Another suggestion that we didn't really get to touch on was that we recommend that they do, the person at nighttime, as part of that task list, they create the orders. So they go through, they see what needs to be ordered, because not only were they facing incorrect inventory levels or excessive inventory levels, they were also having an issue. They have to have their order submitted by 11 a.m. every day, and their rush is, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., which doesn't give them a lot of time to write a very good order. So our suggestion was that they do it at night. That eliminates some of that rush and pressure. And then if they're doing that, then the store will be ready for the delivery driver.
Thank you.
Jen?
Are the gray totes being tracked right now as they deliver to the store and as they're picked up?
No.
No.
Would it be worth the cost to keep that track and worth the time to track those totes to where they go? I mean, who's going to be taking care of that?
It would be added on the invoice with everything else that they receive. And then every time they send one back, they credit. So over time, it's a wash. It might not be an immediate wash, but over a few days,
The
it's a wash.
driver will pick up the old totes.
Yep, and they bring them back to
And
this
he'll mark on
CDC.
how many you picked up.
Yeah, they're currently picking them up and dropping them off, obviously dropping them off, but they pick them up on their route as well.
Did you see a problem with the totes going missing other than breaking?
Yes,
Okay.
that was
The
a big
employees
concern for
are-
Starbucks. Last year, they spent $2.2 million just on totes.
And 10% are missing.
Yeah.
Another question I had, in reading the case, I was curious as to why they brought up the crates that they use for the milk, and that they're free, and I wondered if you had thought of, or if any of your competitors thought of using those crates in some kind of a shared situation.
So the crates.
Do you know what I'm talking about, the milk
Yes.
crates?
Yeah.
One of the issues the judges have brought up with the trays, and we had
Uh-huh.
kind of thought about this as well, is that the top is open. The reason they like the totes is because once the order's picked, they zip tie it shut, and so it's not getting touched, and there's no loss of inventory from the CDC to the store, from the kitchen to the CDC. So they were concerned about not being able to tell what order goes with what, and as far as, keeping them from possibly losing inventory along the way. And so the milk crates would also be another one of those
I see, okay.
issues.
The depth of the milk crate is also difficult because the higher you stack the lunch products, the ones on the bottom are going to be damaged. So we wanted a low profile.
We looked up something that would cover the tops of the trays, but currently there's just not a product that is meant to cover they're just baking trays. And so we looked at the same company that they're currently buying the totes from, and they don't have anything currently, but the website did suggest that you could inquire for a personalized product. So it would be an option.
So if the crates are they collapsible at all?
Yes.
Just the lid.
The totes that we're
Oh.
currently using,
So the totes, I think,
They're
they collapse into each other and they.
you can
Yeah.
stack them. Uh-huh.
But so we have the issue with Starbucks not having space. So is the crate now?
The crates nest on each other, and it's just a smaller footprint.
Well, and also, one tray is basically 3 totes worth of product.
Uh-huh.
So you're eliminating 2 additional totes. So it's really 1 for 3.
Have you guys decided what you're going to do with your money?
I'm going to pay for next semester,
And I'm going to Disneyland.
and he'll send me pictures.
Yes.
Does the new process reduce the damaged products?
Yes, because
And how?
so the trays that we have are more shallow, so you don't have to stack as much on top, but you have more volume to stack also, if that makes sense, because they are wider. And because you can nest the trays on top of each other, you essentially, if it were a tote, it would be like putting a middle level in that tote, so that you don't have all that weight sitting on each other when you max out the volume space.
Do you want to go to that table? So when we looked at it, that's why we include unstacked and stacked, is because they do have that damage. And so the stacked is a little bit more risky, where you could potentially be stacking product on top of each other and it still creating damage. So that's why when we looked at it, the other one, not quite, there you go. So that's why when we looked at it, we considered both stacking and unstacking the product, since the trays are 6 inches tall and a lot of our products are just anywhere between 1.25 and 3 inches. So that's why we considered both. And the damage is only about approximately 0.15% of the total product shipped, which is pretty good, all things considered with how unorganized their current method is for inputting product into the totes. But still, we'd like to further reduce that and make everything easier.
Another benefit of the tray that we didn't bring up was when they're picking the order at the kitchen and they're loading the totes, it's kind of the pictures that they showed where it's just kind of piled in there. You can't really see what is in there. So if they get to the end of the line when they're putting in sandwiches and they've mispicked somewhere, it's hard for them to be visible, and then they just ship it as is. So there's incorrect orders due to that. And so another thing with the trays would be more visible to see what they've loaded in the tray, and that hopefully would increase their accuracy.
Okay.
No, I've heard this. Who said no?
It doesn't matter.
It was Austin. I'm a bad influence on Austin.
Don't be a bad influence.
Yeah.
So I've heard that Starbucks has considered doing something like the 5 S's before, because those back rooms are a complete disaster. Nothing is organized. How would you recommend that they manage the change process so that they could actually make 5S work at their local stores?
So they asked us a similar question as the one of the judges. I believe that they should include the store and the team of the store in setting it up, because if they have the buy-in and they're the ones having to go through and clean it up, they're going to be more likely to want to maintain it. As far as, and then to do the monthly district manager checks, if they're following the process, it's really quick. They can look. It would take maybe a 5-minute walk. The back rooms are not very big, and it's visible right off the bat if they're following it or not, if they're sticking with it. As far as they could take, depending on how in depth they want to go, how long it might take them to set up, but they could even include, they told us right now they currently don't use their handheld to order, but if they did, they could include like their barcodes to go through around the store, and then they can just visually look and order.
I know one of the Starbucks partners, his concern is that currently the partners are just way too busy because of the sheer amount of traffic that they have each day in such a short amount of time. 60% of their business is done within 4 hours of their day. Another thing is just having that compliance be a part of the manager's bonuses, just kind of furthering that motivation with money.
Any other questions?
So you mentioned, Kenzie, that the issue is there's not enough time. So what would you do about that? I mean, if they're really crunched on time, so they can't organize and clean up, can't find a place for everything and put everything in its place, is there anything you can do about that?
Yeah, so the majority of the deliveries, and it's 80%, are conducted at night when the store is unattended. And if part of the closing process were to be to clean up, put everything in order, then that prepares for the delivery man to come by with everything set into place. And you know, for the team of 2 or 3 people closing at night to set everything away versus one delivery man who's on an urgent schedule, it's going to be a lot easier on the partners within the store to do that.
So I think another way that they could do this would be, they currently have basically 17 hours of operation and then 19 hours where they have employees working. If need be, it might be worth it to pay that 1 extra hour and have a person stay after to finish it and pay the wage of 1 additional worker in order to make sure that they can keep it maintained.
Any other ideas for the rest of you? How you could help with the original 5S setup?
Well, ideally, if they should be more efficient. If things are more organized and they're not spending time looking for it, they should be able to get in and out and do their job faster.
That's after you have it working, right?
Yes.
So it's that initial setup of the 5S that has kept Starbucks from ever implementing.
One of the comments on ours was that 5S was not feasible. I was like, oh.
And then it was too expensive.
Yeah,
too
I can't
expensive.
think of a way to do it without incurring more cost.
It's not that expensive to
When
go
you
through
have
and
to
clean
hire
and
someone?
organize.
No.
For that 4 hours though?
Organizing a closet.
No, it's basically creating a culture is what you're trying to do, the culture of 5S. And that's where the challenge is, right? Because if you're not used to doing something and somebody comes in and tells you to redo everything the whole way, so that's kind of where the question in the back is leading to.
And it's top-down culture change.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we came up with a performance measure to make sure that they are at least attempting to adhere to it.
Starbucks, one of the managers that were there, what was his level? He was a manager.
Director, Tim.
We were talking about 5S and he says, oh, we've tried it before, it just doesn't work, we can't do it. And, I mean, so that closed-minded idea that we just, we've
Goes
tried
from the
that, we've
top down.
done that, doesn't work. My thought was, well, you just didn't put the right performance measurements in place, so,
Or incentives.
incentives and.
Psychological intelligence.
So my question for you is, what would the systems diagram look like for implementing 5S at the Starbucks stores?
Each one would be different, and that's why
I don't think they're
I
gonna be
think
different.
I
Or
think
they
it
don't
would be
think
the
so.
culture on the limiting force.
So when you look at the balancing loop, what are the key resisting forces on the balancing loop?
If you, it's not
So
too many-
maybe we should go back to Starbucks and offer a little consulting if they'll write a bigger check.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll take a bigger check.
So just take, well,
So we did kind of think of it, and we did the force field analysis instead of the limiting one, but we kind of thought, what are we pushing for change, and obviously, it's a little bit about their attitude and the lack of urgency. So I think it also would identify what the ambiguity would be with their role, how does it change, and how's it gonna impact their job and
What do I get
what
out
their
of it?
workload, what are they getting out of it?
Okay.
Another
Alright,
biggest thing
correct.
is just that they grew so fast. In the last probably about 15 years, they've just expanded so rapidly that catching something like this would have most likely, in their eyes, needed to have been done in 2000, not 2016.
And they want a solution because the growth they've had in 15 years, they want to push in the next 5.
Oh.
well, thank you very much.